I can't because they weren't given an opportunity to succeed, or they didn't have somebody to like lead them through those next steps. And so we want to help bridge that gap. We realize that not every dealership or business has actual capable leadership to not just help people navigate the sales side of things or maybe the marketing side of things, but actually like how to grow, how to become more, like how to get excited and take ownership of what you do inside the dealership, whatever that may be.
Welcome to the Strategy with Jason podcast. Tune in for everything you need to know to stay in the know regarding the automotive industry. Here's your host, Jason Harris.
Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It is Jason Harris here, and thank you for joining another episode of Strategy with Jason. Today, I am joined by the one, the only, the oh-so-famous Mr. Bill Playford. Bill, what's up? How you doing, man?
I'm great. I brought my camp shirt. I brought my sunshine, as you can see coming in here. It's a rare sunny day in Michigan, and I'm just happy to share everything with the universe today.
Well, I'm excited, man, because we get to talk about summer camp. And specifically the DealerKnows Summer Camp that's coming up here pretty shortly, man. It's right around the corner.
It's coming up.
I am excited when you reached out to me originally. You go, hey, we got this idea. We're going to do this summer camp. Do you want to come? And I'm like, you had me at summer camp. All the memories, man, I had of summer camp and just the fun things. But and I love the fact that you guys kind of chose this type of like theme. Because I think some of the best connections I ever made, growing up probably happened at summer camp. There's just, I don't know, there's something about the outdoors, and there's just something about, being in a cottage and just kind of, walking around the property and, flipping over a canoe with somebody.
Yeah,
it just gets to you, so.
The hazing part, maybe not so much as other things, but yeah.
Wait. Come on, Bill. You tell me there's going to be no hazing in this summer?
I don't think we can do it. But we had to sign a bunch of waivers to make sure people don't drown. Remember, we have a bunch of executives who will be coming to this. So people not getting hurt, a big priority. So, but seriously, like this is a concept we've been thinking about for more than a decade. And, Joe and I talked about over the years, and just, for whatever reason, we couldn't find the right venue or just the right kind of mix of things. And, but we just decided like everything kind of came together and we should just do it, especially after COVID happened and kind of really changed people's outlook on things and kind of maybe dampen the conferences a little bit. I don't know. We just wanted to offer up something different. We've spoken at so many conferences, like, we run into each other at conferences from time to time, Jason, like, that's kind of like the same formula. And it's not to like besmirch any of those conferences. They've done a lot of, good for the industry, and they've brought a lot of people together. But at the same time, like, I think they've sort of created a bit of a formula where people just aren't interacting with the material like they used to. That's much, much more about the.
You mean Bill? It's not the same content over and over, just rinse and repeat. What?
Yeah, I want to go there. Well, that also, then I'm also part of that problem. But and we do a different presentation to every conference we've ever gone to ever. Just so you know, maybe 4 slides get recycled. But in any event, we just want to like create an environment where people can build that community and minimize those distractions and make it less about being in Vegas and all the bright lights or just like at NADA in Dallas. There were so many people that just, really were just too much complaining about the venue and the city and stuff like that. And there wasn't really mention of the content. We feel like there's an opportunity to create, an environment where people can get bored. That's part of the summer camp experience, right? Like you're not completely dazzled by stuff. And I feel like you have to sort of, today, especially with all the beeps and all the stuff we have with our electronics, our phones and everything, like we have to be able to tune all that stuff out so we can focus.
To your point, you got to tune it out. You got to focus. And you're right. The content, I was actually looking at this because, when we got off this phone and me and my team were talking about this, and we just got to talk about events in general. And I was like, I realized I've been to 47 automotive conferences.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And when I think back to, what were the things I actually enjoyed, about these conferences, it was the content and the connection. So I can go back to like this year, the content was amazing. Brent Wees did a presentation. He rocked it. And it was awesome, And that year, I remember, Jim Ziegler was, at his best, and he was just on fire on the stage. I don't always agree with him, but it's cool. But
well, we won't talk about Bud Light in front of him. So, but yeah, and we want to kind of reboot that part of the conference experience. And so, and I want to make sure I'm very clear. What I meant by get bored is like when we're kids, and when you and I are close to the same age, but like we had like an hour of cartoons a day. Maybe depending on what was on the 4 channels, it was a cartoon, then it was Phil Donahue or whatever. But because of that, we were outside. We were making up games. Like if somebody had a ball, like you could make a score, and then you find you're having a lot more fun doing that, or you're jumping your bike off of things you shouldn't be jumping your bike off. But I mean, it's those experiences where like that creativity comes out, and that bond that you make with those kids in your neighborhood about the crazy game you just made up. Like all that comes from like decluttering all those other things that we're worrying about, and especially when it comes to conferences. Like I don't know what you like. I maybe haven't been to 47. I have to sit and count. I've definitely been to dozens, and like they all kind of devolve into the same thing, and it's kind of hard to differentiate sometimes from year to year.
Well,
because it's
the
so
same
formulaic.
hotel model and
Mhm.
the same. I think it has to do with the environment.
Mhm.
I'm like one thing. I love being out in nature. I love it. I actually find that I can absorb more. I feel more connected. There's just something that's to be said about not being in this recycled air, stale, hotel, conference room environment that, I think kind of just not just opens you up from a comfort level, but also just, also from just, it opens up your mind to just kind of absorbing. I absorb more.
100%.
And I think that's amazing. And I think, for anybody out there watching and listening, we want you guys to come to summer camp, with us. And there's going to be some amazing connections, going to be some amazing, content. But, to your point, Bill, I think you guys did an amazing job of just saying, this is going to be different. It's going to be different. It's going to be, it's going to be content and connections, but it's going to be in a different environment. I mean, I gotta be honest with you. If I got to go to Vegas one more time, I'm going to put a hole in my head, man. Like it's too much. It's sensory overload. There's things going on all the time. There's not a moment where I get to rest or relax because somebody wants to hit the crap tables. Somebody wants to go to the really good sushi restaurant. Another person wants to go to the, the bourbon and cigar place. It's just like, I love this. I'm so excited.
It's like FOMO on steroids, but like we're not going though to get entertained, and that's the problem,
exactly.
Right? So
we're there to learn.
But we'll go back to your point about something too, about that connections part. And I think that's another thing that we just are very, very intentional with this conference is that we want to create an environment where people can get back to working with their peers, building networks of people that they can count on in the industry. A lot of us that came up when we did sort of at the, late 90s, early 2000s when we were in retail, like I feel like we're like our own little kind of tribe, in like South America or Africa that's never been touched by anyone. You know what I mean? And we had that kind of connection with each other because we were all doing the same things, and so we relied on each other and we shared notes and we talked about our techniques. We weren't scared that somebody's going to steal what we know or something like that. And I just feel like that part of my conference experience certainly has gone away. I think the other part too is that interaction with the speakers and presenters and outside of just the the vendor personnel that are at the booth, people don't have access like they used to. And I remember back in the day, like that's how Joe and I met. He was a speaker. I was working at a tech company at the time, and we just headed off, started talking at the bar or whatever, because that's where everyone went after everybody learned. They took notes. They did their thing. Everybody got together and went to dinner together and hung out at the bar together, and we just sort of take over a place. And those are just some of the conversations that people remember. They may not remember about Brent Weiss, who's like one of my best friends. Like they may not remember what he said on stage, but they might remember him from going to a party and having dinner with him or something like that, and actually spending an evening with him. We want to create that same opportunity for people, and having a speaker such as yourself, you're going to be there as well. It's giving people access to people like you, who have questions like that, who in a 30 or 45-minute long, like TED style talk, presentation, they may not get it all, or they're like me and their brain starts whirling about, okay, what would I do with this? And you kind of miss some things. Like, you can talk afterwards and you can have lunch later and you
100%.
can
What,
get drinks later at night.
I think some of the best conversation, Bill, is going to happen around that fire pit.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I think, there's one thing to kind of get out the idea in a 30-minute conversation, a 30-minute talk. All right. Mm-hmm. But then to really kind of dive into it collectively in a small huddle around a fire with maybe a little bit of my favorite scotch, but
you have to bring your own flask for the scotch if it's it's something above plastic bottle scotch. No, I'm just kidding.
Fair enough.
So we'll have good bourbon there. Though,
let's go down that because, man, I looked at the roster. I mean, dude, you put a roster together. I mean, come on. Yeah, I mean, there are some serious heavy hitters and some A players in there, and some people that I admire, not just because of their knowledge, but their willingness to give beyond just the knowledge. Like it's very much so of just like, here's everything I know, take it, and you brought some amazing people. So, what are some of I'm curious, just from your perspective, what are some of the people that I know there's a lot, you got a lot. So I know you can't pick favorites, but I'm asking, which ones are you looking forward to?
I mean, just to kind of lay out the philosophy.
Outside of mine, obviously.
Well, see, I have the advantage of being able to call you if I have an issue. Like with all these people, it's been nice because over the years, like I have people I can count on with questions that I can't answer. I mean, even just because you're a speaker or you're kind of labeled as an SME in your field doesn't mean that you don't need help. And I feel like we've, really built a lot of people up over the years in terms of a network, but people that we trust for ideas or just to, bounce something off of versus like, hey, is this legit? That's a lot of it sometimes just to confirm our own, kind of BS meter on certain things. But like, I think on the vehicle acquisition side, I think that's just going to be fire because we have, two of the, if they're not the biggest, like basically only two names in this space that do this stuff day in and day out. And then we have a camp counselor who's like a total OG of used car evaluations in the market and stuff like that in Jason Rice. And so, it's kind of creating this, sort of triumvirate of speakers gives people so much more in terms of depth. And, like not to get off on a complete tangent, but what we wanted to do in particular is make sure that we represent different points of view in this conference. And again, just going back to one of the weaknesses we see is that we get a lot of big city, we get a lot of mega dealer, publicly traded auto groups. In Canada, my experience probably the same as yours. Like, Auto Canada is up there talking, and there's so many huge dealer groups up in Canada that it's way different than a mom and pop shop, or a store like you used to run back in the day. You know what I mean? Like and not to say that strategically some of those things aren't valuable, and some are maybe, but tactically the execution is way different. So we want to make sure that, we're bringing, kind of diverse thoughts on things. So that way we can reach those sort of up and comers, the kind of one person shows at a dealership, and the people who have the enterprise resources. And so the way the content is divided is to have a session for like the limited resource people, the smaller dealerships, the ones with limited budget or limited manpower or limited experience. And then to have another session that's geared more for advanced people or, quote unquote advanced, but have the budget, have, the wherewithal to do, things with the resources they have available. But then we also have a counselor that helps sort of tie those things together. And then everybody should walk away with some sort of action plan. So it's also part of the job of the counselors to actually help people build a strategy so that when a dealer, attendee goes back, like they have something they can put in motion. So that way we can maximize the return on their investment.
Well, and I actually think that's a good segue kind of into my next question is who should be coming to this event? Because I think many conferences have done a decent job of kind of catering to maybe certain individuals, maybe some kind of cater to that middle management, or maybe cater to more used car, or cater to the fixed ops side, and then some cater to owners. So, but who's the ideal individual do you see that really is going to get the most out of attending the event?
I think anybody who, in my mind, is sort of like that Charlie Hustle. Every dealership has that person who is young, they're hungry, they have leadership potential written all over them. And I think then the mentor, the person who's there to kind of, who sees that talent and wants to nurture it. And I got to tell you, like, not every dealership on the continent is going to be that way. But, we really want to focus on the next generation. We feel like that, the kind of Gen Xers and boomers of the world have kind of are having their way, with things right now. And in a way, it kind of creates a little bit of contagion for people who come up in the business, especially if they don't look like somebody or sound like somebody who works at a dealership. And that's just a major issue. And I think, I can't speak for you, but, after working with, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dealerships, just all over, like I said, the whole continent, whether it's in Toronto or Tampa, the individuals that are coming to work at dealerships are way different personality wise.
Yes.
And a lot of folks in leadership are having a hard time contending with that. They can't incentivize the younger employees and things of that nature. And we've worked with something like well over 1,200 BD agents in the last 10, 11 years. Like, it's a lot. I could give you an exact number, but I mean, it's a lot. And I can't count how many times people have left just because they weren't given an opportunity to succeed, or they didn't have somebody to lead them through those next steps. And so we want to help bridge that gap. We realize that not every dealership or business has actual capable leadership
100%.
to not just help people navigate the sales side of things or maybe the marketing side of things, but actually how to grow, how to become more, how to get excited and take ownership of what you do inside the dealership, whatever that may be. And so that's why we're having sessions on culture, actually corporate culture, and sessions on management and leadership, and bringing in people who are subject matter experts in their own right to help dealerships navigate that, including actual dealers who have dealerships and are doing these things on their own to try to do these things. And they realize that it's not an overnight thing. Toyota did not become Toyota overnight, right? It took, decades and decades and decades of very conscientious planning to do what they are lauded for today. And the companies that we look at today as big brands, Apple, it's not new. Nike, it's not new. It's something, those sort of emotional things we associate with those companies started decades ago, and they just grew and grew and grew because they had a pipeline of talent, they had a pipeline of leadership who nurtured that talent, and it built those brands up. And I feel
that's kind of fundamentally changed.
Yeah.
I just recently read a stat that, prior to COVID, the average new hire at a dealership had about 3 years worth of experience when they came to work at a dealership, meaning they've been in the business for a little while. From my understanding now, the current stat is less than a year.
I believe it.
New hires today coming into the dealership has less than a year of experience in automotive, and that's an average. So that means there's probably some that have quite a few, and then a ton that have zero. So and Bill, I think the other thing you and Joe did an amazing job is that how accessible you've made this. Now I am excited to fly in. I know there's a little bit of a drive, but I actually am excited about that part. I actually think it's going to be fun. I do like that part, but accessible in the sense of the pricing. Because, I just think if I want to sit down and really get some one-on-one on the impressive roster of people that you guys have assembled, I would have to go to a Digital Dealer Tampa. I'd have to go to an NADA, all right? And not just the cost of getting there, but also just the cost of my hotel, just the cost of the tickets. I mean, it can be thousands and thousands of dollars just to attend to the event, but there's so many people, I'll never get that intimate connection like I'm going to get here. Yeah. So here I can come and let's talk a little bit about this. How much, is it going to cost for someone, to attend the event?
So, I'm glad you brought that up, because one of our old taglines we came up with when I first joined DealerKnows and kind of as DealerKnows is today, we always felt like training should never be a luxury. And that was always one of the things we'd say. And it's almost kind of like an internal tagline we'd remind ourselves, because when I was in retail, there was very few internet trainers and very few sales trainers. They all charged exorbitant sums of money. To this day, it makes me blush what some sales trainers will charge for just a day's worth of material, especially knowing full well that the people there are only going to retain like 20 minutes of it anyway. You know what I mean? And that's like an actual like psychological statistic that you can look up in a journal. So but the fact of the matter is that we want to make this so that really anybody could attend. And that's what took so long with the logistics to get this really planned, is to try to find a way where we can make it a really inexpensive flight for anybody in the country, and make it so that the lodging isn't expensive, and then actually have a real bona fide summer camp. And so we're just outside of Atlanta. It's about an hour and a half, 2 hours from Atlanta, but we're actually handling all the transportation when you're there. So we have a shuttle service. They'll take you to and from the camp and to and from the accommodations. We have a whole hotel that we rented out mostly. I mean, I'd say like probably 85% of it is blocked off for just the attendees for the camp. So essentially, we're going to take over this really cool independent hotel that we found in the area. And then we're actually basically making it so that all the meals are covered, all the drinks are covered, all the entertainment's covered. Essentially, all anybody has to do is get themselves there and put themselves up for 3 days. And it'll be, basically what going to one of the big conferences would cost. It'll cover everything just for the ticket cost from their conference. So the tickets themselves are just under $500 themselves, which is a fraction of what you'd pay at other places. But then it's also all inclusive. So we want to make it so that actual people at the dealership can go. It's not something you just throw on your Amex card and write off or whatever. But as anybody who's been to NADA or Digital Dealer or any of the other conferences out there, that you're going to add a couple grand at least of expenses on top of just the ticket itself. And we just didn't want to put people in that situation. We didn't want to make it so that was a hurdle to have this experience. And then moreover, with that, we wanted to, again, make it so the environment's very inclusive, and so for the people who don't have the budget, their dealership doesn't have the budget to send them somewhere, like they can actually afford to do this out of their own pocket. So it's something where we just, again, wanted to open it up for a different audience of people so we can get the people who aren't going to conferences to participate and still get that network, still build those relationships. And hopefully it'll be the catalyst to, kind of build the next generation of car dealers.
Dude, I'm excited. And when you were talking about the bus ride up there, all I can see in my head is like Joe grabbing a guitar and kind of like bringing us into a sing along as we drive up there. I really hope that happens. So
I can't imagine Joe playing a guitar. So
you can just start a sing along then. Let's just see someone doing.
Yeah, so they're not school buses. We got motor coaches, but yeah, we actually have a shuttle, and we're actually working with everybody to sort of kind of coalesce their travel accommodations to minimize that amount of time. But we're trying to think of all the things that are hurdle for most people at a conference.
I think you're taking those hurdles and you're going to make them fun. So there we go. It's going to be a fun, professional event, and Absolutely. with just so much real close connection that you just don't get at another event. So for everybody out there watching and listening right now, we've talked about this amazing event, and then we kind of come to the just tell me when it's going on. Okay, finally, guys. So when is it, and where can they buy their tickets right now?
So if you go to DealerKnows.com, DealerKnows.com, it'll be a pop-up that'll take you right there. And then we actually have a link right on the site that'll take you right to the summer camp page. We're making updates all the time. We're still got a few speaking spots that we're trying to fill right now. So we're making updates all the time in terms of content, agenda. We just announced our keynotes, so it's something definitely to tune back into. And the conference itself is between May. It's actually the 23rd through the 25th, but we're actually having a welcome dinner on the 22nd that's going to essentially kind of kick things off. And we're going to have karaoke and stuff because we're known for that. And just to kind of set the tone. But man, I got to tell you, the keynotes we have lined up, I'm super excited. Just having seen some of them before and having heard their message just prior to this, I think too, it's going to be something completely different. So like April Holmes is a Paralympic athlete, gold medal winner, set a world record, first female on the Jordan brand. We're going to have her talk at our conference. Like, how cool is that? And Max Joseph, for some people may know from Google advertising, he's going to talk about, like leadership and DEI initiatives. Charlie Wahlberg, he's a South by Southwest speaker. He owns an advertising agency in Detroit. He's done TEDx Detroit for since its inception. Guy's just a force of nature. He's going to be there. We got Bo Pisker, who is completely outside of automotive altogether, actually helped develop the mobile technology we use today at Motorola, and is actually, and kind of formed all that stuff in terms of commanding military. You know what I mean? So it's just a really interesting, of course he's like a Harvard, alum and everything else, but I mean, just it's that diversity of thought, diversity of speakers, and really just trying to bring these things together and bridge all those gaps. I think it's going to really open a lot of eyes, especially as people start talking about it, and I think that's what's going to be neat. It's going to start those thoughts and what you think about that, and those types of conversations. That's what we're hoping to do, because that's how we're going to make things evolve. That's how we're going to change things. And I just want to be part of that, man. I want to have a legacy of keeping it going. So
it's going to be a lot of fun. If you're out there watching, listening right now, you need to go to the website right now, check it out. I hope to see everyone at summer camp. Bill, for everybody out there watching and listening right now, what's the best way to connect with you?
Just shoot me an email, bill@dealerknows.com.
There we go, guys. You've heard it. Bill,
Jason's bringing scotch too. He said so before we recorded. So.
I am, but I am not. I know sharing is caring. I just don't care that much.
Bill, this is Glen, Georgia.
This is. I don't know what that is. Bill, thank you so much for taking the time to jam with me today, man. This is a lot of fun. Really looking forward to seeing you at camp.
Yeah, great seeing you again. Thanks for having me join. Appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to the Strategy with Jason podcast with your host, Jason Harris. Don't want to miss new content? Be sure to check out the full podcast library at strategywithjason.com to stay in the know. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Happy podcasting.